The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling. I think the motto over the Supreme Court is equal justice under law, the oath that you and I take, pledge to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, not arbitrarily defined. Mr. Barnes, I was struck by your opening comments, and I asked to get a copy of them so I could read them and make sure I quoted them correctly. You state, and this is a quote from Secretary Rubio, our rights come from God, our creator, not from our laws, not from our governments. I find that very, very troubling. I'm a devout person. I was a missionary in Honduras. We've got other devout folks in this room, Christian, Jewish, Muslim American. The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling. I think the motto over the Supreme Court is equal justice under law, the oath that you and I take, pledge to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, not arbitrarily defined natural rights. I'm a strong believer in natural rights, but I have a feeling if we were to have a debate about natural rights in the room and put people around the table with different religious traditions, there would be some significant differences in the definitions of those natural rights. You go on to say, I believe our country and our government is the best in the world and our strength comes from our enduring values. I believe that. But then you say, and you got to choose what to say in your opening testimony, these values aren't an endless list of, quote, rights. You put the quote around that to kind of demean the notion of rights that people create and change and form to meet their own needs or desires. These values aren't identity politics. They're the historic natural rights that we have as individuals pursuing life, liberty, and happiness in the world. Pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. The State Department's Human Rights Report has just struck out all references to the rights of LGBTQ people in countries and the way countries treat LGBTQ people. I mean, do they have a right to liberty? Do they have a right to life? Do they have a right to happiness? Senator Murphy pointed out that the Human Rights Report has taken out information about freedom of association, about freedom of expression, about exploitation of children, about prison conditions. These were all part of the human rights reports that have been done for years by the State Department. I think these are things that are connected to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They've now all been removed from the State Department's annual human rights report. And the notion that, well, we wanted to make it shorter or more readable just doesn't pass the laugh test with me and many others on this committee. I'm not really going to ask you about your testimony because I believe you offered that in a very sincere way, and I don't want to try to change your opinion on something you sincerely believe. But the notion that our rights do not come from our laws or our government should make people very, very nervous. Because people of any religious tradition or none are entitled to the equal protection of the laws under the 14th Amendment. It shouldn't matter what their religious background is, what they think about God or the Creator, what their church affiliation is. You are entitled in this country, every person, to the equal protection of the laws. And so to demean laws and demean governments and suggest that rights don't come from laws and governments, I mean, again, I think there are such things as natural rights, and I try to live in accord with them. But I would never demean the law. We are a nation of laws, not men. Laws, not people. And if we now, after nearly 250 years, suddenly start to demean that or diminish that and suggest, no, it's natural rights as defined by a leader, the leader of Iran or the leader of any nation, that does not create a place of safety or comfort for folks. Mr. Wilcox, I want to just...
Mr. Barnes, I'd actually like to go back to the exchange you had with Senator Kaine, and I wish Senator Kaine was still here. Senator Kaine and I were elected together 13 years ago. He is a friend. I would actually encourage observers to go back and listen to what Senator Kaine said, because I have to say I think was disturbing and showed much of where today's Democrat Party has gone wrong. So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created. And if you do not believe me, and you made reference to this, Mr. Barnes, then you can believe perhaps the most prominent Virginian to ever serve, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator, not by government, not by the Democratic National Committee, but by God, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." I have to say it is stunning to me that the principle that God has given us natural rights is now deemed by Democrats some radical and dangerous notion. Mr. Jefferson was right when he wrote those words. Government exists to protect those rights. But slavery was not okay when U.S. law allowed it. It was wrong then, it is wrong now, it is always wrong. I guess I would just ask you, your role is going to be very much a role designed to defend human rights across the globe. Do you agree with what I just said? And what do you think about the concept that the founding principles of America are radical and dangerous? What do you think about that particular notion?
Yes, Senator, I appreciate the question. I'll just say, I think one of the ideas behind, we have a new office in DRL, Office of Natural Rights, post the reorganization. I think one of the ideas behind that is you actually have the most consensus behind these natural rights than the kind of, maybe hot button issues of the day. And so we should champion those. As Senator Kaine mentioned, all are created equal. We agree with that. That's in the Declaration of Independence, as is endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Thank you.
In the final moments of this hearing, something deeper than a policy disagreement unfolded. It began with Senator Tim Kaine reading aloud a line from Senator Rubio's statement. "Our rights come from God, our Creator, not from our laws, not from our government." Kaine paused on those words, not to mock them, but to challenge the meaning behind them. He spoke as a man who has lived his faith, who served as a missionary, who sat across from people of many traditions. And he warned that if rights are defined only through divine interpretation, then any leader, anywhere in the world, could claim that authority for themselves. He spoke of regimes that use faith not as a shield for the vulnerable, but as a weapon against those who think differently. To him, law, clear, written, accountable, is the only guarantee of equal protection in a nation as diverse as America. And then Senator Ted Cruz entered the room. He did not stroll in quietly. He walked into the middle of a philosophical storm. And the moment he heard Kaine's remarks, he said he almost fell out of his chair. To Cruz, the idea that rights come from a creator is not dangerous, not radical, but foundational. He invoked Jefferson, the Declaration, the very words engraved into the American identity, endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Cruz did not soften his tone. He did not dilute his frustration. He framed Kaine's argument as a rejection of the founding logic of the United States. And in doing so, he reignited one of the oldest debates in the American experiment. Where do rights truly come from? It was a remarkable clash, not because of the volume, but because of the meaning. Two senators, two devout men, two visions of justice. Kaine argued that rights must be anchored in law, so every citizen of every faith or no faith is protected equally under the Constitution. He warned that without this grounding, whoever claims to speak for the divine could decide which rights are real and which can be ignored. He pointed to global reports, omissions in documentation, and the danger of narrowing human rights definitions to avoid discomfort. Cruz insisted that if rights come only from government, then government can take them away. That the founders wrote a system meant to restrain power, not concentrate it. He reminded the room that governments throughout history have permitted injustices under the color of law, and that legality alone is not morality. To him, natural rights are the line that no legislature, no committee, no administration has the authority to erase. And suddenly, the hearing was no longer about a statement in an opening testimony. It became a confrontation over how America defines itself. This moment revealed something larger, something heavier. It showed the fragile balance between faith and governance in a pluralistic nation. It exposed the tension between those who fear that grounding rights in religion undermines equality and those who fear that grounding them in government alone undermines liberty. It reminded us that America has always walked a narrow path between divine belief and civic structure, never fully one, never fully the other. Senator Kaine spoke for those who look to the law as the great equalizer. Senator Cruz spoke for those who believe rights must pre-exist the law, or else they are not rights at all. And beneath it all, running like a quiet current, was a question every democracy must answer. Who gets to decide what freedom means? Is it written on paper or written into the human spirit? Is it defined by institutions or discovered through something older, something timeless? The exchange ended without a resolution. There was no handshake of agreement, no softening of positions. The hearing room returned to its procedural rhythm, but something lingered in the air. The sense that Americans are still wrestling with the same questions that shaped the founding era. In a country of hundreds of millions with every faith, every background, every worldview imaginable, these debates are not weaknesses. They are the living heartbeat of a free republic. They are the friction that keeps our ideals from fading into slogans. They are the disagreements that reveal what we truly value. What you witnessed today was not just a clash between senators. It was a collision between two philosophies of rights, one rooted in law, the other in inherent dignity. One fearing the abuse of divine authority, the other fearing the overreach of government authority. Each side sees danger in the other's path. Each side believes they are defending the very core of American freedom. And maybe, in some way, they both are. Because the strength of this nation has never come from silence. It comes from the courage to argue openly, intensely, passionately about what kind of country we want to be, and who we are willing to trust with the power to define our rights. In this room, in this moment, the questions were raw, the emotions real, the stakes unmistakable. And while the senators walked out, the debate remains. It belongs now to the American people, to you, the viewer, to decide which vision best protects liberty in the century ahead. Because these hearings are not just politics. They are history unfolding, principle colliding with principle, and the future of the Republic being shaped word by word. And that is why we follow these moments. That is why we shine a light on them. That is why Liberty Report USA exists. To witness, to analyze, to question power, wherever it stands. If you believe these debates matter, if you believe America is strongest when citizens stay informed. If you believe truth deserves a voice, then stand with us. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA and help us continue the work of exposing the moments that define our democracy.